The senator fears him. The woman loves him. The manipulator wants to destroy him.
Hi and welcome to Terry Talks Movies. This time around, I'm diving into two more of Umbrella Entertainment's Ozploitation classic series. One of them I bought, one of them was supplied by Umbrella Entertainment for the review, and I thank them for that one. The movies are number 13 and number 18 in the series, and much to my surprise, one of them I hadn't seen before, and I've seen a lot of Australian movies. Both of the discs are full of special features and some other extras that I'll show you shortly. Harlequin was written by Everett de Roche, who scripted a lot of Ozploitation movies back in the day, including things like Razorback, which is one of my favourites. This one is a kind of deep cut, high concept film that really should have done better. From 1980. And it was directed by Simon Windsor, who helmed some interesting movies around the same time, and a couple of turkeys as well. Harlequin's one of those Australian movies that lives in a twilight zone in a lot of different ways. Conceptually, it's a pretty bold movie. The concept is solid. It's a retelling of the story of Grigory Rasputin in a modern context.
I know nothing about politics, Senator, but I do know about magic.
Then the movie starts out with a reenactment of events that actually happened in Australian history, so sit back for a little minor history lesson. In 1967, the Prime Minister Harold Holt went swimming off Cheviot Beach on the Mornington Peninsula, south of Melbourne, and was never seen again. Don't worry, it was a long time ago and he was a truly ordinary Prime Minister. And to commemorate him, they named a public swimming pool after the guy. In Harlequin, a powerful politician does the same thing. The proposed replacement, Senator Nick Rast, played by David Hemmings, has a few family problems to solve before he gets the gong. His marriage to Sandra, played by Carmen Duncan, was one of convenience. She's the daughter of a political family, and that was good for his prospects in getting to be a senator. And they have a young son called Alex, played by Mark Spain, who is dying of leukemia. At Alex's birthday party, which they suspect will be his last, a hired clown, Gregory Wolfe, played by Robert Powell, enchants the boy, who begins to miraculously recover from his illness. After the party, Wolfe insinuates himself into the Rast family, charming the boy and teaching him subtle but powerful magic. He also seduces Sandra, the mother, but this isn't really a big deal for the senator, who has a girlfriend on the side, until it's brought to the attention of his handler, Doc Whelan, played by Broderick Crawford, the political power broker who's grooming Nick for the recently vacated position, because Nick is easy to manipulate. What that position is never really made clear in the movie. The questions here are, is Wolfe working for Doc Whelan's political enemies or foreign governments, or is he an independent agent of chaos? Is he a clever stage magician and a god-tier level social engineer? Or does he have actual supernatural powers? And also, why is he there? Harlequin, as the director Simon Windsor says in the interview, which is part of the extras on the disc, exists in no particular country. Both Rast and Wolfe have received pronunciation British accents. Doc Whelan and the Rast security chief Bergier, played by Gus Mercurio, have American accents, and Sandra and Alex have Australian accents. Robert Powell's best remembered for the TV series Doomwatch, and he played Jesus of Nazareth in Lou Grade's TV miniseries in 1977. He's really great as Gregory Wolfe in this. He's charismatic, he's wry, he's charming, he's menacing, and he has a nice rapport with Mark Spain playing Alex. Getting a kid to have that rapport with an actor is sometimes difficult, but Robert Powell pulls it off really well. And he really sells the idea that Wolfe may be grooming the boy, not sexually, but as a kind of sorcerer's apprentice. Carmen Duncan also delivers a complex and nuanced performance as Sandra. She really sells us on the idea that this woman loves her child and is totally torn apart by the possibility that he may die. The producer of this film was Anthony I. Giannone, a really interesting guy who made a whole bunch of films in the 1970s and 1980s and modelled himself after Roger Corman. In order to get international film sales, Giannone filled his movies with veteran and often self-medicating name actors from foreign countries. The movie was filmed in Perth in Western Australia, with the exteriors of the Rest House being shot at the mansion of a well-known and corrupt millionaire businessman, Alan Bond. And this was at a time when few movies were made on the west coast of Australia, so it was a little bit of a breakthrough for west coast filmmaking. So is Harlequin worth getting? Oh, absolutely. The movie itself is interesting. The special effects are good. The extras are partly extended versions of the interviews Mark Hartley did for his documentary Not Quite Hollywood back in 2006. There's audio and archival interviews and a whole heap of other materials, which gives us as complete a look at the making of the film as you're ever going to get. In addition, you get 8 collector cards, one of which I can't show you on YouTube, which fit neatly into the Blu-ray case, and I'll just show that to you and demonstrate it right now. Got to be careful because there's nudity on the back of these covers, and so I've got to keep my finger over the nudie bits. So there's the back cover of the slip cover. There's the inside case cover. There's the other side of the inside case cover. And there's the disc itself and the cards. I'll show you some of the cards, but I won't show you all of them for the reason I mentioned before. There's Mark Spain playing Alex. There's that. And I really like this one. I think it's a lovely piece of art. And here's the one I can't show you, and then there's this one which I like as well. And I like getting these cards in the movie cases as well. They add just that little bit extra there. They're kind of value added, along with the extras, that really makes these movies kind of fascinating as artifacts as much as they are a way of recording the movie itself. And the good news here is that these movies are multi-region. Wherever you are, you can play them. And I think that's a very smart move by Umbrella. They want people to enjoy Australian cinema history, and they try to make it as accessible as possible in doing that. But this one, I didn't like it when I first saw it back in the day, but it's kind of grown on me. I think there's some good special effects in it. I think the characters are well drawn. I don't like the idea of bringing in American and English actors for name value. I think that's a concept that we kind of need to leave behind, and we should be selling Australian movies based on the quality of the film and not which familiar face is in them. But that's something that other people disagree with. That brings us to the second one, which is the most recent release under the Ozploitation Classics label of Umbrella. A little film from 1982 called A Dangerous Summer. We got nudity on the back of this one as well, so I'll put my finger over it. There's your back cover. There's the inside artwork, and there's some more of the inside artwork. And inside, discs. And you get the same kind of 8 lobby cards here. Now, the movie was also known under a couple of titles, one of which was Flashfire, and the other one was A Burning Man. This, of course, was before the Burning Man Festival. But they've got reproductions of the lobby cards, which I like a lot. It says, an arsonist is loose, his identity unknown, and suddenly it has become a dangerous summer. So, lobby cards for these kind of things can run you as much as this movie costs easily. And they're very collectible, so reproducing them here gives people a way of getting them, whereas they'd have to hunt them down and pay an exorbitant amount to get them under other circumstances. I really like that. Now, to understand this movie, you need to understand that bushfires are a big thing here in Australia. In Japan, the prevalent natural disasters are earthquakes and tsunamis, with a little bit of monsoon on the side. In Switzerland, it's snow avalanches. In Indonesia, it's active volcanoes. In America, it's the Second Amendment. And in Australia, it's bushfires alternating with floods. There's not an adult Australian who hasn't seen a bushfire or smelled the smoke from one. In 2009, 173 people died in the hills east of Melbourne here, 60 kilometres from where I'm sitting, when the Black Sunday fires ripped through the Dandenongs. It was an incredibly hard time. The temperature got above 45 degrees for 3 days in a row. I remember standing out on a street corner and experiencing that. And I calculated out that my blood was the coldest thing on the street by about 12 degrees centigrade. Standing out in 45-degree heat will make you feel tired and worn out and dehydrated in about 5 minutes. So bushfires are deeply woven through Australia's 65,000-year history. And so I'm surprised that this hidden gem of an Australian movie only got a limited release in 1982 and that I'd never seen it before. I did calculate it out, and in 1982 I was probably living where the movie was filmed. Up in the Blue Mountains, I was living in Falconbridge, basically couch surfing with a few friends when I was in between accommodation. The movie was directed by an interesting guy called Quentin Masters, who's interviewed on the extras of this disc. His previous movie is kind of vulgar pleasure of mine, the 1978 disco nudie film The Stud, starring Joan Collins, which, if you can find it, has a really great soundtrack of 1970 music. Now, A Dangerous Summer is another Australian movie of the era with a lot of imported stars and a limited budget. The first imported star is Tom Skerritt, fresh off the Nostromo. He plays a guy called Howard, a builder who's constructing a hotel in the Blue Mountains west of Sydney. For him, the hotel is a passion project, and for his dodgy business partner, Fane, played by the ever-saturnine Guy Dolman, it's an insurance scam waiting to happen. Fane's henchmen have to burn down the hotel in a bushfire and collect the insurance money before the policy lapses at the end of the year. Now, there are two people who are sniffing around the dodgy insurance policy. The first one is a local lawyer who works for the local insurance company, played by Wendy Hughes. And the second is an investigator from Lloyd's of London called George Engels, played by James Mason.
I would do what I could to make sure that your hotel remains intact. Meanwhile, on the other hand, I'd be only too pleased to see it burned to the ground, preferably with your partner, Mr. Fane, holding the match.
Who gets a free pass as an overseas actor in an Australian movie because his wife Clarissa Kay was Australian. George gets sent out to Sydney after Sophie McCann, the Wendy Hughes character, kind of sniffs out the scam. A Dangerous Summer's got a really slow and odd start. It uses bushfire footage shot for a documentary that the producer Jim McElroy made with Brian Trenchard Smith. In amongst the footage, we get to see Howard yelling at the local fire brigade chief Spider, played by Australian acting legend Ray Barrett, but we don't really understand who each of the characters are and what their relationship is. We see them yelling, but we don't quite understand them at that stage. But when the movie gets momentum, it's a solid action drama. There's a very well shot murder by drowning at Manly Beach, an attempt to kill James Mason's character George in his Katoomba hotel room, and a fiery climax as the arsonist is revealed and he goes full-on berserk, burning down Howard's house and the hotel as well. But the standout scene for me is a steam locomotive pulling a passenger train that barrels through a bushfire. The carriages catch on fire and there's a real sense of threat as the passengers move to the back of the carriages before escaping out of the inferno. I don't know whether that was done with model work. It's a little hard to tell. It looks like it was done with a real train. But either way, it's kind of the movie burying the lead there. It really is a spectacular little scene that I think gets under-recognised when people talk about the film. Thomas Skerritt and James Mason have a great rapport, and they get some solid character moments. The supporting cast is rock solid with familiar faces like Norman Kay and Shane Porteous. and Kim Deacon filling out the minor roles. The extras on the Blu-ray, by the way, are exceptional. There's cast interviews and audio appreciation of Quentin Masters' work by David Duvall, an interview with Kim Deacon about her time on the film, a trailer reel for the movie's production company Filmco showing some of the other films they made. You get the lobby cards, and grooviest of all, you can watch the whole movie as a pan and scan VHS film because they add that to the disc. I like that. I like that as an extra because if you are in a nostalgic mood, you can see the movie the way it was seen by most people, which was on a roadshow VHS tape. And it'll give you that little bit of feel that you went down to a video shop on a Saturday night and found this movie and stuck it in your machine and watched it old school. That kind of an extra I appreciate because it's not something you automatically think of. But when you see it, you appreciate the tender loving care with which the disc was put together. Now, Umbrella keeps upping their game and giving us so much more than just a bare bones movie each time they release new Ozploitation films. Their dedication to preserving and sharing real Australian cinema at a time when half of the world is breathless because Baz Luhrmann made an ordinary Elvis movie in Queensland really should be supported. Now, if you're interested in Australian cinema's past and future, you need to get on board with the Umbrella's releases. They're going to show you things you haven't seen. And you'll see enough extras that'll give you cultural context for the films. Even though you may not be familiar with some of the things the films are talking about, they will be explained to you. Thank you to Umbrella Entertainment for supplying me A Dangerous Summer. They've also given me another movie, a horror movie, which is incredibly transgressive. And I'll be reviewing that in my next video and talking about the movement that that movie was a part of. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, subscribing and leaving a comment. You can also support the channel by donating at patreon.com/paleocinema. Got a few interesting things coming up in the next few weeks. I'm doing a few Asian science fiction movies from recent years that are a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm not going to necessarily do a Halloween October. There will be a couple of horror movies thrown in there, but they won't specifically be themed for Halloween, even though I do have this little bastard sitting on the desk. But anyway, until next time, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies. Try to find some Australian movies you haven't seen before. They're starting to be available, and they are interesting as hell. So that's it for this time around. I'll catch you next time.